Welcome to the Brown residence. The BBC have given me my own show. The idiots. I think it's been the youngest of 11 kids. I think you learn very quickly that if you can entertain the rest, if you can make the rest of them laugh, that you get very well looked after, you know. You might just get that last potato on the plate. So I never, you know what? I didn't do my first gig till I was 35. Wow. So I didn't really have a plan that I would go, I'm going to go to comedy. I had owned a pub at the time with a partner, and the partner did a runner with the funds, and I just needed to get money. And friends had told me for years, I knew I could hold an audience at a party. If I was with a group of guys at a party, I knew I could, if it was in the humour. And my mates had always said for years, you know, oh, you should be on a stage. But you can't trust your mates. And then when I tried it, it was just unbelievable. It was just, the first time I went on a stage, I remember the feeling of, oh my God, it's so free, it's so freeing. And I knew that moment. I think it's just, yeah, I'm dyslexic, but I have a photographic mind and memory. I have a great memory for conversations. Everything I have a conversation about, I remember every bit of it. And I think it's that. I think I just keep picking up vignettes, and all of a sudden, before you realise, you have a repertoire. And you take a little bit from this, a little bit from that. I couldn't go through the whole list of comedians that I've stolen from. I mean, there's a million of them. And you steal. You don't borrow the stuff. You steal it, because if you borrow it, it's still theirs. You steal it, it's yours. But you take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you put it together. And so it's a question of telling a story, but making sure that the gags in it fit. And I'm making this sound very artistic now after talking about it a bit. You know when something's funny. Listen, okay, let me try and rephrase this. Writing comedy is not like writing comedy. Writing comedy is what I do to write comedy is I write something that I think will make me laugh, that I know makes me laugh, and then you hope that an audience latches onto that. And sometimes people, your own sense of humour doesn't latch on. So, you know, there's a lot of comedians who are very funny and write stuff that they think is funny, and they just don't get a break. It just doesn't happen. The audience just go, no, not for me. And I'm very lucky that what I've been writing so far that makes me laugh, turns out makes a lot of people laugh as well. So that's how I started. I just started money, really. Just wanted to get money. Will you stop stuffing them dirty magazines under your mattress? It's nearly 4 foot thick.
It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. Mrs. Brown is the funniest, most interfering mother.
Well, they came to me. Not nice, isn't it? That nice, isn't it? We've had a few offers of television. Because this has been going a while. We've been doing this a long time as a stage show. There's 5 Mrs. Brown plays. So, you know, we've been doing it for some years. And we've had a few television offers, but they would all, somewhere along the line, say, do you know who would be perfect in this part or that part? And that was it. It's either this cast or no cast. You know, that's not the way we roll. It's very much a team thing. But the BBC, Stephen McCrum, he got it. I swear to God. And you wouldn't think he would, because Mrs. Brown is very working class. And he's an Etonian boy, very Eton. And he got the joke. And he, the night he walked in off the street and presented his card and said, would you be interested in developing this for a sitcom? I was in Glasgow at the time. And I said, yeah, sure. Thinking, it doesn't work like that. They don't walk in off the street. I said, what do you think of the, what do you think of the cast? Oh, I said, I don't think you'd work with any of the cast. He said, they just all know their roles so well. And they allow you the freedom to be crazy, you know. I said, what about the language? He said, I didn't hear the language. I don't really know. That's the way she speaks. It's not, she's not using the F word as an insult. She uses it as an exclamation or a comma or, okay. So I'm thinking, this guy's singing all the right tunes. But still at that time, I didn't think he'd get it past BBC. You know, he was the producer, but I didn't think he'd get it past the higher echelons. And if he did, I thought it would be BBC 3. But when we came back and he said, we've got a pilot for BBC 1, I actually couldn't believe it. And nobody in BBC 1 from day one said, we want to take out the F word. We want to change that. We want to do that. Their attitude was, what the show ends up as, the only thing it will decide is its time slot. That's all. We're not going to change the show. Just make the show that you would make. Do the show that you would do if you're on stage. And I wanted to stay as true to the theatre show as we could, and we did. And the only thing we'll decide after that is what time it goes on. So they decided at 10:35. They were hoping for about 1.5 million viewers. And they told me that the way it works is that you get 1.5 million viewers, the way sitcom works, and then as your platform, and then it goes down to 1.2, then 1.1, down to around 900,000, and then you build it back up by the midway stage to 1.5. And once you can do that, you've got a hit in your hands. We started at 2.2, 2.6, 2.8, 3.4, 3.8, and finished at 4.1 million. With an AI of 88. So they were absolutely gobsmacked.
Enjoy this lovable mum. That's a most outrageous.
It's supposed to be red.
Is it supposed to be slapper red? We are the most respectable family on this street.
Yeah. A lot of people would ask, is Mrs. Brown my mother? Well, obviously she's not my mother, because my mother was quite a different lady. My mother was. She was a nun. She started her life as a nun and renounced her vows, married my dad, went on to have 11 kids, so obviously she wasn't meant to be a nun. She also became the first woman elected to the Irish Parliament, and she was the first female Under Secretary of the United Nations, and she was the first Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs that was female in the world, and at the same time lived in the council house with 11 kids. So she wasn't my mum. But when my mum retired from politics, I was about 9. My dad died, and my mum stepped back a bit and stayed at home to look after me. And she'd made a few bob. You know, she'd done okay, and we thought we'd be all. But she didn't. She bought 2 homes on the North Circular Road, knocked them into one, and she opened a shelter for battered wives and homeless kids, in which we all had to volunteer, whether we wanted to or not. So which is...
She's completely the opposite.
Completely the opposite. Well, you know what? I thought she was, Georgina. I really did. I thought, initially I would immediately reject that Mrs. Brown was anything to do with my mum. But as I get on, I started to see there's a lot of similarities. Let me get back to the thing. Instead of going down to, when I finished school, instead of going straight down home, because I'd be sent down to make beds or to cook breakfast or whatever in the home, we all ended up in the hotel business, every one of us. And I think it was because of that, because the lesson we learned from my mother is that it's possible to give service without feeling servile. And it was a great lesson for us. But what I used to do was, when I finished school, I'd stash my school bag, because if I went home, I'd be sent down to work. And the market in Dublin is called Moore Street Market. And it's all manned by these really tough nut ladies. And they rule the roost. But they adore their kids. That's their big link, is that they absolutely adore their children. And I used to run errands for them. And all of their banter and all of their wit and all of their hardness, but their soft hearts, rubbed off. And when I see Mrs. Brown, when I watch Mrs. Brown on the telly, I go, oh God, she reminds me of Nellie, or she reminds me of Mrs. Redden, or whatever, all the dealers there. So I suppose she's a kind of an amalgamation of all of those. But getting back to my mother's end, I'm now starting to see that she's also, yeah, she is my mother. The difference is, Agnes left school when she was 10. My mother had a bachelor's degree from Galway University. Education was the only difference, but they're exactly the same. My mother was exactly the same with her kids. Probably whichever one I'm doing at the time. When you're writing it, you love writing it up to a point. When you get in prison and you go, oh God, I gotta finish this. And then when you finish it, I don't sleep for 2 days. It's just such a high to write the end. And then when you're directing, it's great, because my wife has a great way of describing teamwork as she would envisage it by me. She says teamwork is everybody doing what Brendan says. So I enjoy that bit, the directing. And then the acting, I get to do every single night. I get to dress up and go out on the stage, and when I finish, everybody claps. I mean, that's the youngest child syndrome, you know, just attention.
Packed with over an hour of hilarious extras from your favourite new show.
you remember being pregnant on me?
Do I remember it?
What were you hoping I'd be?
Your father's.
Filmed in front of a live audience, it's hysterical fun.
That's my son. He's a big cock.